Well, hey everybody, I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Brooklyn. Brooklyn, welcome to BecomingMeTV. And you guys, I cannot wait for you to hear Brooklyn's story today. We had scheduled several weeks ago a virtual coffee date, and we ended up being on our virtual coffee date for like hours. I couldn't stop talking to Brooklyn. She's a true gem. And so I'm excited about becoming who God made me to be with her, and for all of us to just learn from her today. So Brooklyn, let's kick it off by just sharing, who is Brooklyn?
Well, Emily, I have to confess, you were the first person I've ever had virtual coffee with.
Yes.
It was awesome. I mean, it really was awesome.
Yes.
That was a first. So as Emily said, my name is Brooklyn, and sadly, I'm not from Brooklyn. I get asked all the time, like, are you from New York? And I'm not, which is unfortunate to tell people, but I've been there, and spending New York in Christmas is like the most magical thing in the world.
Yes.
I love New York, but I'm not from there. I'm actually from the completely opposite side of the country. So I'm from the Pacific Northwest, which I love my roots. I love that I was raised in Washington. It's beautiful there. I'm from a really small town and have a bunch of sisters. So life was filled with Barbies and estrogen and drama, but it was great. And so now I live in Atlanta. So my new home is in the South. I've lived here for 3 years. So after I finished my undergrad, I flew here to work at a church. So I work for the local church in Gwinnett County, and just love getting to do what I get to do. I met my husband. He was a volunteer. So a couple years ago, we started talking, and that's how all great relationships start in the church, right?
Exactly.
We've been married for just over a year, and he's amazing. He's a teacher for special ed students and a coach, and so he's awesome. That's kind of a snapshot of who I am. 2 fun facts. I love coffee. Love coffee.
Yes.
So Emily and I, we just connect over this.
Yeah.
Well, coffee was the greatest thing ever for me to experience. But I know that some of you don't like coffee. I married a man who doesn't drink it, which I truly thought was going to be a deal breaker. I called my twin that night and I'm like, he doesn't like coffee. I mean, I don't think I can go on a second date with him. And there's hope, though. We're making it. We're working on it. It's good. He will actually put chocolate milk into a mug, and we will have coffee dates, which is kind of cute. So if you're sitting there with your tea or your water or your chocolate milk, there's no disrespect. We get it.
Oh, yes.
I personally love coffee, and then I also love to run. So I'm currently training for my first marathon, which is both exciting and scary. So we're doing a rock and roll marathon in Savannah, Georgia this November. So I have to start increasing my mileage. I really do enjoy it running. So
That's incredible. You're going to crush your first marathon. Oh my goodness. And one of these days I'm having in real life coffee with you. I'm so excited. Not just virtual coffee.
You're Atlanta anytime.
Yes. Hey, you're just a couple hour drive from me, so I will make it happen for sure. For sure. Well, Brooklyn, when we chatted, you shared your story with me, and I'm inspired and encouraged by how you're becoming who God made you to be. So why don't you just take some time right now and unpack how you've become the Brooklyn that you are today? What's your story?
Well, I love that you do this. So thanks for the opportunity. It's an honor to be here. As I said, I grew up with 5 sisters. So a huge part of my story is living with a twin sister primarily, and just the blessing that it is to have a person that's so close to you. It's such a special connection. But in that, there was a lot of comparison. And I mean, if you have a sibling, you probably do this, whether they're a twin or not. Or if you're an only child, I'm sure you just compare yourself to your friends. But at an early age, I realized that comparison was this thing that I struggled with. And so that's just been something that still to this day I'm journeying with and navigating. But that played a huge part in my experience as I moved to Georgia, coming here and trying to be successful, and looking at my twin, and she's published a book, and she's married, and she's awesome, and all of this. And so I moved to Georgia working for this church, and I really wanted to write my story to look similar to Courtney's, but better, and it sounds so bad, but it's true. I really wanted this great story to be as awesome as my twin. And in that, God just revealed that he's actually holding my pen. I'm not writing my own story. And so there was just a lot of struggle in that. And it was just an interesting journey to feel almost alone and kind of like God was absent and silent, because I had this plan for my life. And the next chapter of my story, if you will, was supposed to say employee at Gwinnett Church. And that was my hope. That was my dream. And it felt like there was just silence. And I was like, God, I don't understand. I want to work for your local church at the end of the day. And you're just silent. And so that was a really dark season. I felt alone. I felt confused. I lived here with no family in Georgia. So that just played a part of it, because I'm so close with my family, but it was far from them. And in that, I came to a point where I completely had to surrender my story. And I won't ever forget, but I literally journaled and I said, Jesus, you take the pen. You are a better author. I don't feel like you are in this moment, but I know you to be. And so please write my story. And he's just been so faithful to honor and answer that. And I know that's not everyone's experience, but in this one specific career category of my story, I had a dream. And I was not super open-handed. I was kind of gripping this idea of one church and one church alone could I work for. And when I finally said, there's lots of local churches to be a part of, I'm willing to just go where you place me. He was good enough to place me at the church I ultimately wanted to be at, which is so amazing. And it's just an indicator of his character. But that's just a huge part of who I am. I'm still journeying with this idea of comparison as I've now entered into marriage. My husband and I go on couple dates and double dates, and you sit across from people and you go to their homes and you're like, oh my gosh, you have that Joanna Gaines like rug that is $1,000. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you, but inside I'm dying, And so I'm still becoming the person that is fully trusting God and who I am, to the small little to the big things. But I'm constantly just being refined by him, and I'm drawing near to him, because in that season where I felt alone, he was really the only person that was there for me. And so I would go to Jesus in my journal and be like, I'm mad at you, goodbye. Like it literally was that he's big enough, he can handle it. But I feel like in that it formed just a closeness to God. And I felt like for the first time, I grew up in the faith. I grew up being a Christ follower. I felt like all of a sudden this big God became a personal God to Brooklyn. And he was like, I'm with you. And if you just keep walking in alignment with me and step by step with me, I'm writing a good story. You don't feel it, you don't experience it, but I am. So just trust that. So it's just been a great journey to continue to see his faithfulness. And so, I think that's the biggest piece
I love it.
I want to share right now.
I love that. And I love how you even referenced you are working on having that open-handedness, and we can go back to having clenched fists. Brooklyn and I both have a mentor in common, and Jenny Catron. And several years ago, I was struggling with how to trust God in a situation. I just said, Jenny, like, how can I trust God? Like, I, want XYZ to happen. And she literally said, Emily, you are walking forward right now with clenched fists. Trusting God looks like living like this. When you can open up your hands, you're trusting him to direct it wherever and whatever happens that you're gripping onto. But when you're doing this, you can't walk in freedom. And I love that visual because it's so true to how we even just with our posture get. So I love that part of your journey. But, if you were sitting having a cup of coffee with another woman, you're at your favorite coffee shop, what would you say to encourage her on her own becoming journey?
I think I would say two things. One, let go. And two, grab the microphone. And what I mean by that is let go of the pen or the pencil or the crayon, whatever you're thinking, you're writing your own story. Because when we let go and we have that open grip, like you're saying, and we allow God, truly the perfect author of everyone's story, to write our own story, it's so freeing and satisfying. And I think it's the life he intended for us. I'm actually studying the book of Esther right now, and it's really fascinating. You guys all probably know this, but in the entire book of Esther, God's name is never referenced. It never says the name of God, but it's so evident that God is orchestrating and writing an amazing story with Esther, an amazing story with Mordecai. I love that he says, or in the scripture, it says Esther was there for just a time as this. And so if I was sitting across from someone, I would say, let go of that pen. And I know you want to have a grip around it. And I know you want to control the next page of your story in this chapter. But when you let go, you'll experience freedom. I mean, the entire Jewish nation was saved from Mordecai and Esther by them allowing God to write their story. So I think that's huge. I also think the microphone piece is huge. I personally, when you asked me, Emily, to be super candid, when you said, will you share your Becoming Me story? I said, I don't have a story. Like, I really don't have a story. Like, yeah, I have a life and there's been experiences. But what I'm realizing is I don't think I have a story worth sharing. And I would just encourage, I think you asked me about 2 months ago. And so in that time, God's been revealing to me this ugly layer of feeling like I don't have a story worth sharing. And behind that is a layer of comparison. Like I said, I'm looking to to my right and to the left and looking at other people's stories. And I'm like, well, I'll interview them. Like, interview my twin. She has a great story, So I would just encourage you. You have no idea the impact that your story could make. And so grab a microphone, share whatever story it is, because God has uniquely given all of your years and years and years to create a beautiful story. And I would hate to think that we rob people of the blessing that comes out of each of our stories because we're not willing to share it. And for me, it's more from a comparison. Like, I don't think there's anything worth sharing, but I know for others, it's out of like transparency, the vulnerability, because there's shame in my story and there's this and this. And I love that you interview and you sit across from women who are willing to be brave and bold, because they are so inspiring and life-giving, and there's so much connection that comes from it. So I would encourage women to let go and grab a microphone, because they have a story worth sharing.
That's so good. Right now, I want to say drop the mic, because you just nailed it. Like, so much truth in what you just shared. And I love how you camped on, we all have a story. And for me, that's even how Becoming Stories started. I didn't think I had a story. So I just started asking other people. And when you see our daily lives open up into this beautiful thing, like sitting across from you, I'm like, Brooklyn's story is so inspiring, And so seeing that in other people, it just breathes this reminder into me and into all of us that, okay, if Brooklyn has a story, I have a story. If Brooklyn can share her story and pick up her microphone, like, I can do that too. So that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. Thanks for sharing that. You're amazing.
Can I share one last thing?
Yeah.
I just thought of this, but there's a song we sing at our church. It's called Only Yours, but there's a line that says only you. So only you call this outcast your child. Only you use my scars for your glory. Only you use my life for your story. And I really think as Christ followers, it's such a good reminder that we are going to experience scars and we're going to experience difficulties, but ultimately it's for God's glory. And our life can be, a microphone and a mouthpiece for God's story. So I love that song. Yeah. Maybe we can share it. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But those are powerful lyrics when you really apply them.
Absolutely. For all of you watching, we'll have the link to that song in this post. That way you can just click it. You can listen to what Brooklyn was just sharing. But Brooklyn, thank you so much for sharing your story, who you are, who you're becoming, and then encouraging and challenging all of us to passionately pursue becoming who God made us to be. That's a really big deal. And all of you need to follow Brooklyn, because I literally, every time I got on Instagram, I'm just inspired and encouraged by her. So make sure you follow Brooklyn. We'll have that link here as well. But Brooklyn, thank you. You're amazing.
Thanks, Emily.